What is up, everybody? We are back with another episode of Bird Call. It is the triumphant return, as some might say. I've come up with that phrase literally by myself. But I just so happen to also have a co-host here. Squid, how's it going?
Hello. Wow, I haven't been on this stream in so long.
So what we're doing here is we are going to be talking about everything surrounding coaching. We're going to be talking about what it's like to be a coach. Might also talk about what it's like to be a student, as we have both been students before. But there's like a giant coaching boom, by the way. It seems like everybody and their mom is coaching Melee recently. So yeah, we're going to be talking about everything surrounding coaching, what it's meant for us, and all that good stuff. So I'm hoping that it can be insightful for all of you. Yeah, where do you want to start off, Squid?
I think the topic people most think of when they think of coaching is just surrounding getting better at Melee, right? And I think that that's because we were kind of talking about different topics that surround this, and there's actually a lot, right? There's a lot that goes into coaching, but definitely the first thing people think of is how do you get better at Melee, right? So I think we should probably start there with what are kind of the most common reasons why people don't improve at Melee, or what have you found that you're able to help people with, and then they improve at Melee or something like that.
One of the things that's even tricky to tackle about this topic, right, is it's hard to quantify improvement. I had this a pretty popular tweet now. I had that graph of my win rate literally going up. It was kind of staggering.
The Sammy lesson?
It's literally I go down and then I start the Sammy lesson and it's literally up from there. And it's well, was that the Sammy lesson? Am I entering easier tournaments? It's actually kind of hard to even interpret the data. And, years ago we wouldn't have even had data to look at. But yeah, how would you kind of go about quantifying improvement in a student? Is it necessarily from results, or is it kind of what you see from their play change?
It's pretty much never about results, I think, which is funny because results matter a lot. Because no doubt the better player wins almost every time in Melee. It's very consistent, I think. The better player, they don't just win 51% win rate, then you can climb the ladder, a lot of other games. It's no, you can beat this person 95% of the time, a lot of the time. So, but when assessing skill level or why you need to improve, then win rate actually doesn't matter at all. And it all comes down to the details and in-game interactions and stuff. So that's definitely the step one for me, is to figure out kind of how to quantify improvement, and that's with in-game stuff, right? So you kind of build tools up to tell how good your decision making is.
Right. And you as a teacher, when you give lessons, are you kind of you watch through the tools that they're using, and are you just oh, this is an overall improvement to the tools that you're using, regardless of winning or losing, right?
Yeah. I have a little bit of a struggle with deciding how much I want to impose my view of the game versus I think there's this romanticized ideal of oh yes, you can express yourself in Melee and you can kind of just build up their view of the game. But sometimes their view of the game is just getting crouch canceled,
Right, absolutely.
And it's well, no, you gotta not nair at 0%. That's not an expression thing. You just gotta not do it, So sometimes it's coming up with, because I have kind of I call them mantras, just rules you gotta follow. And then you can express yourself once you kind of know how to follow those rules, or even know where to break them, right? So an example of this is kind of what I mentioned, is playing for percents, really low percent, and knowing how you want to play low percents. That's actually always my starting point, is how you play versus 0% opponents, because every game starts with a 0% opponent.
Right. True.
So that's a good starting point where you can hit start and say let's see how long before you make a bad decision. Right. And my favorite one is you go, ready, go, and then they dash back, and I'm what are you dashing back from? You've already trolled the game, right?
I recently had a Falco Ditto lesson where I went over the concept of the start of round, we start on the opposite sides of FD. Well, you want laser control, you don't want to be in the corner, and you want to be aggressive, right? Those are usually my three things that I'd say about the matchup in general. And it's okay, well, if you know those things, then you will necessarily move towards the center of the stage, hopefully do some sort of laser and be aggressive. But I had the student, I explained all those concepts, we went through analysis of exactly those concepts, and I said, let's just play a match real quick. We started up on FD, and I approached with a laser, and they were dash dancing in the corner.
Exactly.
And I'm why are you dash dancing in the corner? I'm not doing anything to you. So it's interesting because applying those kind of core concepts that you end up finding that they're kind of having mistakes in is kind of interesting to me. But yeah, low percent opponents is huge. People don't even pay attention to percents a lot of the time, I find.
Yeah, I think probably character specific too. I think Marth kind of down to play for the grab regardless of percent in a lot of matchups. But Falco at low percents, well, it's also matchup dependent, but like you got to play for the shine, right? Versus like Spaceys, for example. And like most of your other moves suck.
Yeah.
So like if you're fighting Fox, like you want to hit shine or like a really late down air shine or like a nair in the air shine, you know, but really you should just use shine. Like that's what I tell people. It's like when you're first like learning this concept because you're like doing it so wrong that you're using every move and then half of them get reversaled. It's like, no, try just use it and see how you can do with that, you know.
Yeah, the way I kind of talk about it too is you talk about like just using shine, which I super agree with, but the way I kind of explain it too is like your whole goal is to get to shine at 0%. Your goal is never to like somehow up tilt them or like back air them or something, or like nair through them or forward tilt them or poke at them. We're not poking. Like what we need is a big hit to get them to a percent where we can start poking them or something and have that knock them down or knock them off the stage. So it's like, okay, well, what leads into shine? Definitely not early aerial. Never early aerial. And then we end up watching any student. It's literally every single one. It's like laser, early aerial. And it's like...
immediately,
Okay, let's say you hit the down air. Sometimes they hit the down air. And it's like, okay, well, you got 12% or something. And then they hit you. It's like, now you got shined into the corner, you ended up dying. And it's like, sure, the corner pressure happened afterwards, but the reason you died is because you didn't understand how to play against this person at 0%.
And I think that, like, the reason this is so hard for students to do is because Melee is way too fast, right? Like, when situations happen, they're not actually playing the situation in front of them. Their brain is, like, half a second behind, lagging. And then you're like, why didn't you do that? And the real reason is their, like, inner monologue was just like, it wasn't like, I should early down here. You know? They're just freaking out, you know? So I think the easiest way to like tackle this problem is that you want to start with like very simple, easy to recognize situations. So I actually like saying play for the shine, but what I actually care about is what happens after the shine. Because another thing that happens is that in all these lessons, they don't play for the shine at all, but they land shines anyways. Their opponent somehow is getting hit by shine. So it's like, well, you actually did hit enough shines to win this game. So let's start by looking at when you hit your opponent with shine, what can you do? And you can go like even simpler than that, where like when you hit a shine and they DI'd off stage at 20, that's an easy one. You just forward smash them, you know, like, or something like that. So
I really think it's perfect what you said. Like everybody's inner monologue is like way too overwhelmed in those situations. And I try to like kind of quell that by just giving general rules. Like I kind of mentioned my rules for the Falco did earlier. The way I view it, and I also try to help build analytics into my student. Because I say, okay, well, you either want to have laser control, push them to the corner, and be aggressive. That's what you want to do. If you're not doing one of those three things, let's analyze what the heck is going on, right? Like, why are you dashing back? Do you feel like there was a valuable reason for that? You moved to the platform. Was there a valuable reason for that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but you can kind of look at it simply from like the perspective of a low-level player, like, all right, all I have to do is follow these three rules, and then I should be good to go. I don't get into like, okay, so there was this many L frames, but your opponent was able to get a laser out second, and they shot it high, which means that they're going to have to land afterwards, but they are going to be able to hit you with the laser second, which means they should have some small amount of frame advantage, but you are far enough away where you're outside of the unreactable zone. It's like, I'm not talking about this. I say, like, does your opponent have enough time to get a laser out? If yes, be prepared to deal with laser. And I feel like the more you can sort of build those general rules into people, the more that, like, inner monologue can be like, oh, this guy's at low percent. I just do one of my three things that I do when my opponent's at low percent. I think that's useful.
It's kind of like fallbacks, right? So like when you are panicking, do one of the fallbacks. One of my favorite analogies for me, because like I kind of come from a background of StarCraft where like I got good at StarCraft 2 before I got good at Melee. And StarCraft 2 I think is way clearer with this type of stuff because it's a quote unquote strategy game. Right? So a lot of times the discussion in that game is like you need a reason to fight, not a reason not to fight, you know? And like a lot of times that's based around resources, right? So like you're fighting over resources, and if you just fight for nothing, you're kind of wasting your time. Like, no, you could have just gotten more resources or prevented them from getting resources. And the strategy game in Melee for me tends to come back to stage control, where it's like the resource you guys are fighting over is center stage. And this kind of varies matchup to matchup, like how much does center stage matter versus Fox compared to like versus Peach.
Definitely.
Like, it's like sometimes it matters more and less, but definitely it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something with especially like lower level players who are so focused on like controlling their character and stuff, where it's like, yo, if you don't know what to do, just touch the center of the stage. Just touch it, you know?
Yep. I literally talked about this in my most recent lesson, was like, it's so easy on Pokemon Stadium because you're like, just hang out in the Pokeball, you know? Like, there's literally a Pokeball there for you to just run back to if you'd like. And sure, like, you might be giving up some advantage of like pushing your opponent to the corner, but like, generally, things aren't going to go too terribly wrong. And I like how you talk about the resource of center stage. And it's interesting to me, I try to explain this a lot of the time, because people talk about Falco spawning at death percent, right? But Falco really only spawns at death percent if you're like doing something unsafe in the corner, like, and then burn your double jump poorly or something. Falco doesn't spawn at death percent if you're fighting for center stage, doing zoning aerials, like doing safe pressure, all that kind of stuff.
A lot of times, in some ways, your opponent is also spawning at death percent if they're making equally egregious errors, right? Like,
absolutely.
If Fox makes it really easy to shine him, then he's kind of spawning at death percent.
Yep.
And if you're making it really easy for him to shine you and you fall off stage, then there you go, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I like the use of talking about center stage and fighting for a resource. I've never thought of it that way. That's really interesting.
It's just like an analogy that's useful for me for like other concepts to be simpler, you know? Because it's just like when I don't know what to do, it's like, oh yeah, I can just fight for center, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the tricky things that I find my students don't fully understand is just the risk of the corner too. I literally had a lesson, the person's in the chat, which is funny, but a lesson of Falco versus Dr. Mario. And I was like, well, if you control center stage or even use the top platform, if you really want to be a degen about it, how will Dr. Mario kill you? Like, I'm just like curious, you know? And it's like, he's going to have to get like 9 reads and then push you to the corner and then read you again and then kill you. But let's say you like early nair into the corner, he back throws you off the stage. Okay, well, you could die now. You could literally die. But, your opponent's limited in the corner, right? So maybe that's a time to be aggressive. But you have to be aggressive in the right ways. And finding that balance is something that I really find that lower and mid-level players have a hard time understanding. Sometimes when the opponent's on the ledge, they're standing right next to it. And then they get drilled from ledge by a fox or something. Or they're like all the way on the opposite side of the stage because they're like, I'm not going to get reversaled.
And their opponent regular gets up, dashes to center.
Yeah, exactly. No. It's like, okay, we need to find the balance here of like playing for center stage, being safe, aggressing on your opponent when it makes sense, and evaluating the risk that's involved in approaching the corner. And I feel like translating that to a person is something, and of course it changes from matchup to matchup, like we keep mentioning, but it's something that I find pretty important throughout my lessons.
Yeah, maybe the biggest in relation to the corner is roll. Like, how often do you see people nair into the corner and have their opponent roll through them? And now they're in a risky spot because the next interaction, it's like, well, how does Dr. Mario kill you from here? Well, he could forward throw you, like he could nair and just clip you and then you fall off stage and then he capes your jump. I don't know, like it's just like so much easier to visualize him killing you when you're all the way in the corner. Some matches I watch, and like sometimes what I'll do is like the Falco's all the way in the corner at 100 and the Fox is just like full hop back air, full hop back air, full hop back air. And I'm like, okay, we're actually not going to watch this because you're just doomed here. Like, who cares? Like, yeah, you could get better at this, but like, dude, like obviously this is a situation we need to avoid. You're in the corner at 100 getting back aired by a 0% Fox. Like, let's just not let that happen again. But then the rest of the match is just played in that position the whole time. And you're like, okay, that's actually what we're going to address because you're actually always in a doomed position.
Yes. So first thing here, it's very funny you mentioned like, oh, maybe he clips you with an air and somehow like capes you or something. That is literally how this lesson started. The Falco put themselves in the corner. The Dr. Mario just nared all the way into the corner, got clipped, dead. And I was like, well, that shouldn't be happening. I have students ask me sort of impossible questions sometimes, and I'm curious if this ever comes up for you. Somebody will ask me a question like, all right, when I'm at like 150% and Sheik has me cornered, like I have a hard time getting out. Like, am I doing something wrong? It's like, I don't know. Like that situation is so bad. Like
it's so doomed.
We were kind of talking about Strive before we started the podcast, but like, so in fighting games, like the corner sucks and everybody knows it. I feel like in Melee, not everybody knows the corner sucks, but like you might be fighting against a top tier character that has the best corner pressure in the game in Strive, and it feels awful.
Yeah, you can just tell. You're like, wow, okay.
And it's
Ram
just
pushed her button to goes full screen and doesn't have no command airplay.
Yes, exactly. So like in that situation, any fighting game player would tell you like, man, you just have to eat it and like look for a hole, try to like find your way out, but it's gonna be rough as heck. I feel like melee players are like, can't I just do some like frame perfect thing that like beats my opponent? It's like, no, you're gonna be in hell for a little while, bud. Like,
yeah, I actually think that this is kind of a trap of melee, because like realistically, you actually could do a frame perfect thing and beat it, because you could just go to the ledge dash 14 gallant nair through them and hit them and stuff.
True.
And that's kind of like the trap that tricks people into thinking that the corner sometimes isn't that bad. Right?
Yeah.
And when they die, it's because they messed up the 14 gallant nair into them or something, and it's not because they were in the corner and they were doomed.
Yeah, right.
It's so easy to like, no, I could have outplayed this. And I think that other fighting games are way more clear about the decision making. Like I found this with Strive a lot, where it's just like, oh, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, I see.
Yep.
I just shouldn't push that button to beat that, you know. But in melee, you're like, ooh, I could have drifted my nair differently. Ooh, if I had fast fell differently, I would have get it. You know, like...
True. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's interesting that you said like, oh, like I could have just ledge dashed through them. But the question is, should you have even been in that position in the first place? And melee players, and the positions are changing so quickly in melee that it's hard to keep up with. But people have to ask themselves more, and this is why coaching is valuable. It's like the coach will be able to tell you, should you be doing that, right? And the more readily you're able to ask yourself that question, the better, right?
So definitely, I like how we're like talking about coaching and it turned into a discussion at center stage.
Yep,
which I actually think is like probably the most common topic for me is in these coaching, is how important teaching center stage is, especially for kind of like the lower level players, because it tends to be like, when I talk about center stage, it's like a whole new way of thinking. It's like, oh, I never even considered, like I was just worried about spacing around Marth's nair here. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I'm in the corner and I'm trying to space around Marth's nair. So maybe my goal is just to, you know, full hop, side B to the top platform, drop down, and then try to space around Marth's nair from middle, you know?
One of the interesting things to me, this kind of has to do with center stage. Well, actually, first of all, I wanted to say center stage comes up for me very quickly too when I give my lessons, mostly because everything that the way I view melee is just a bunch of series of risk reward, right? How risky is it to do X? Is the reward worthwhile? You know, okay, our opponent's done this 8 times. Can we reasonably assume they're going to do it again? If so, maybe we can do something risky that has a lot of reward, but, you know, it's probably not that risky because we can make an assumption on what's going to happen. And when you talk about risk reward, like necessarily you have to talk about stage positioning.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just immediately follows. But on top of that, something that's interesting to me that comes up, especially with low and mid-level players, like you were kind of mentioning, is corner pressure and kind of like ledge trapping at the same time. That should be the simplest position in the game. You know, your opponent is at like 130%. It's a fox in the corner. You are doing like laser, back air, maybe grabbing them and like forward tilt or something, but like pretty much just back air. But people will complicate it to be like, okay, I have to like dash forward, wave dash back, shoot a low laser into jump over the potential power shield. Oh god, they full hopped over me. And it's like, no, like center stage center stage, we're both at 0% or maybe like slightly differing percents. Like that's a complicated situation. What should you do there? That's hard to say.
I like to joke that it almost doesn't matter what you do, right? Because like you're both gonna pick an option, and then there'll be a scrap, and then you'll either hit a shine and you'll focus on punish, or you'll get hit and focus on defense. You know, like who cares? Like
very true.
Neutral schmootral, you
know. Sammy talks about that a lot too. Is like, you know, how much does neutral really matter? Like Leffen, he always says like Leffen has one of the worst neutrals like in the game, or like at top level, of course. He has better neutral than
actually bottom 5 neutral out of all players.
But like, so he has decently bad neutral, let's say like at least in the Falco matchup or something. But his punish game is so good that it like almost doesn't matter. He can lose neutral, get close to you, and then like even if you hit him, we're like close to each other now. So then he wins the interaction. Yeah, corner pressure being simple is like that's where I blow all the low and mid level players' minds. It's like, go watch Mango. It's not complicated what he does once his opponent's in the corner at high percent. It's a lot of back air, a lot of like, you know, approaching late nair, maybe a shine grab at some point, lasering, holding position. Like that's literally what it is.
Yeah, it's funny too because it's actually the opposite of like that Sheik question you posed, right? We're like, dude, the Sheik is just back airing repeatedly at 150. What do I do? It's impossible. And then when they're in that position, it's equally easy, right? You can also just back air your 150% opponent in corner, but they overcomplicate it because they don't want to be that. I think like part of it is like you want to outplay your opponent. It's like, but actually you can just make it impossible for them to play, right? Like just doing nothing but AC back air is probably better than what you're doing right now. You know?
Do you have any more mantras, by the way?
Let's see. So one of my favorite ones I call cover the greediest option.
Okay.
And this is actually kind of related to stage control because, for example, in a tech chase scenario, I tell people you should tend to just cover tech in towards center, right? And then you're either going to kill them or they're going to be in the corner. If you're juggling someone, I tell people, I actually just tweeted about this one recently with like the diagonal back air.
I saw that.
Like, yeah, just back air towards center and cover the drift in. You will either back air them or they will dodge it and be in the corner, right? And in your punish game, you should just cover DI in, and then you're either going to cover the DI or they're going to be in the corner, right?
Yep.
And when you play this way, you're just constantly going to be fighting people in the corner more and more, which one will put you in good positions, and two will make you better at corner pressure.
Yeah.
Because corner pressure, it is like the simplest situation, but it's still hard, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially just because skill ceilings in Melee are so high that like top players are really good in the corner.
Yeah.
Right? Like you put most Falcos against Zane in the corner and very few can win even from the best position, right?
Yep.
So better make sure you can play when your opponent is cornered, and this sets you up for that a lot. So just quote unquote, oh yeah, this is a cover the greediest option, you know, situation, and they're like, oh, I see, I could have just played for center here.
Yeah.
Too.
I love that. Man, I can't remember what matchup it was, but I watched a lesson of yours where it was sort of like you were just telling them, like, just run a cycle of like, okay, you cover the greediest option, they're in the corner, you hit them, you cover the greediest option, they're in the corner, you hit them, and like over and over and over again. It's like, how are they supposed to win? And it's really like they just have to outplay you hard.
That's like with Peach or like characters like that. 'Cause I like to joke that Peach is a mid tier who happens to be top tier because like if you up throw Samus, she like sucks at coming down and you put her in the corner, and Peach is kind of the same. She just happens to be good enough in center stage to where it's okay.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, you juggle her, and if you hit her off stage, now you're edge guarding her. She grabs the ledge, now you're ledge trapping her. She gets up, now you're corner pressuring her. You hit her, you're juggling her. And it's just like this constant loop of her playing really losing mix-ups, you know?
Yeah. And like an example of like covering the greediest option against Peach, like, okay, let's say she's off stage up being, right? Like cover her full just drifting into center stage, right? If she doesn't, that means she has to drift back, and now she's even farther off stage. You cover her drifting forward again. Okay, well now she has to go to the ledge, and her life just sucks.
Yeah, I was like, don't grab the ledge ever.
Yes.
Like just let her grab the ledge. Like later on you can like, oh, well, I'll read him, go off stage down there.
Yep.
But like, dude, she's so doomed when she grabs the ledge. You do not care if she grabs the ledge. Just back air her back to the ledge over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I should say, too, we're talking kind of from a Falco perspective, right? And most of our students historically have likely been Falcos, at least on my end they have been. But the thing is, this goes for essentially all characters, right?
Yeah.
I think Falco benefits from this a ton. One, because he exerts really heavy corner pressure, and has a pretty good time holding center stage because he has you know, good zoning aerials, big hitboxes, and good out of shield options. He can contest very well. But like every character operates this way, where like you can put somebody in the corner, cover their roll in. If they don't roll in, that means they're in the corner. Okay, well that's always going to be a favorable situation for you. Oh, it just came back to me. I like that you mentioned that like you put Zane in the corner or something, he's going to be very good at that situation. I feel like that comes from top players being like, okay, how am I dying? Right? Like, what's going wrong? And they're like, oh, when I'm in the corner, I keep getting hit by this. And they immediately, like, hammer in, like, okay, well, I have to get really good at this corner situation, or else I'm just going to continue dying. Which, again, if we talk about the value of center stage and paying attention to stage positions, like, that's what newer players should also be building into their play, right?
Because I like to say that punish game is by far the most important thing. Actually, this is kind of related to my mantras. I have, like, the steps of punish game, which I like to break down. The first step is the move choice that the punish game started with, right? This kind of goes back to when I was saying like, oh yeah, you play for Shine versus Fox or something. But I like to say that like the move choice that you're using to start your punish, that's neutral game. Like pretty much nothing else matters, right? It's just like what move are you looking for in neutral? And actually, I forgot to mention this, but when you're talking about Leffen, that's what Leffen's good at, in my opinion, in terms of like neutral. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have like the best baits or like meaningful mix-ups or whatever, but he's never using the wrong move, right? Like he's using the right move that starts a big combo if he hits it, and that's like such a high baseline. Like very few players are always using the right move, So
yeah, I find it really interesting. I watch a lot of Leffen playing against like Mango or something, and it's like, okay, Leffen's at like 10%. Okay, how's he gonna like open up Mango, and he up smashes him and starts a giant combo. I'm like, yeah, up smash was a pretty good move. If he could hit him at 10% there, that makes sense to me.
Exactly. It's like, man, if you just use a move and randomly you'll hit it sometimes. It's too hard not to like randomly get. How often do you see JV5s, even with like really big skill discrepancies?
Yeah.
Now imagine if like when Mango gets clipped by like random Joe Schmo, imagine if he just killed him off of that.
Right.
And suddenly it would be pretty close, right? Like random Joe Schmo just threw out a move and Mango got hit by it. Unfortunately, he got reversal and he only did 9%. It was a soft nair.
Yeah.
But what if it was an up smash?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's an interesting way to think about it. Neutral is essentially just the move you want to start your combo with.
Right.
That's interesting.
And that's also like, that's technically the starting point. And once you both know that, then like how do you, for example, like playing for Shine, there's actually so many ways to play for Shine. I always tell people it is not as limiting as it sounds to only use Shine in neutral. Like it sounds like, oh, won't I be really predictable? And I was like, you can do so much and only use Shine. You can laser dash JC Shine, you can running Shine, you can shield drop Shine, short hop Shine off the platform, waveland around Shine. Like there's so many ways to Shine that like you do not have to be predictable at all, even if they know that you have a move that starts a combo and the others don't start a combo. You know?
Yeah, I feel like the reason why I really like this the way that you're describing it is because I feel like it'd be really digestible for a student too. It's just like, oh well, you know, neutral, think about what do you want to open them up with at this percent, right? And top players are just so good at that. I'm thinking about we talked about this way back. I think we had a podcast with Kalindi where we talked about it, but like every time I'm at 0, he full hop drills me every time. And it's like, yeah, I guess like, well, I can't crouch cancel. If I get hit by it, it's going to start a combo. He's either going to get a Shine, push me to the corner, or he's going to get a grab and then start a giant combo. And it's like, I can deal with it if he hits me with other things. Try and nair me, bro. Like, I'm ready.
Yeah. And it's hard to Shine him for doing that, right? So
yeah.
You're both at 0. He's threatening his thing and trying to play around your thing.
Yep.
Which is like, oh, okay, now we're playing neutral, right?
Yeah.
Because we both know what move we're trying to hit.
Yep.
And that's like the starting point of neutral. But for most of the time, people don't get there, where it's like, you don't have to look at the interaction of drill versus Shine. Like you just have to use Shine right now.
So this actually, I was just going to say quickly. So my most recent lesson again. So it was Falco versus Dr. Mario, and the person was having a hard time coming up with a game plan for what am I supposed to do against Doc. I don't even know where to start. It kind of ties into what we were just saying, where I talk about, well, you want to look at your strengths against their weaknesses, and then their strengths versus your weaknesses. So essentially, like, what are you looking to do that will beat out their character, right? So like in the Dr. Mario matchup, like he has really stubby limbs, so he has no good disjoints, and he also runs pretty slowly. You have very good disjoints, and you also have a projectile that's hard to deal with. So slow him down even more with your projectile and use your zoning attacks that he likely can't beat out with his disjoints. And so that kind of ties back into neutral, where like, okay, you know that this person's looking for this thing, right? So what is your counter to that thing, right? Because even Dr. Mario has like a thing he's looking for. He probably wants to grab you somehow.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Then what you have to think of is, how do I play around grab? That's like literally how it goes. And what people should be thinking about against Falco, as much as I wouldn't like to say it to them, is like, how do you avoid getting shined at low percent? Well, like, what are you going to do? What are the steps that you're going to take? Do you have moves that are larger than Shine? You know, are you just going to roll away and like use platforms? Pretty hard to, you know, shine somebody on a platform. So thinking about it as simply as that, like, well, what are they looking for and what am I going to do about it is pretty useful.
Yeah, I call it like zooming out, where you'll start from a position where like, okay, I've hit the Shine. Right. And now we analyze this. And then we go one step back, and it was like you hit a point blank laser and then hit Shine. It's like, okay, well, now you need to figure out how to not get hit by a point blank laser. Right. And if you watch that situation, it's like, well, the Falco just full approaching lasered on you and you held shield. So it's like, okay, well, at that range where he could full approaching laser, just full hop away or roll or something. And boom, suddenly you're not getting shined anymore, right? Same thing with like Dr. Mario. It's like, how did you get grabbed? Well, you full approaching aerial and got shield grab. Okay, well, let's eliminate that one. And then how does he get a grab, right? Does he like build and run across the stage slowly and grab you? Like, well, okay, there's counterplay to that too. You know, like you kind of like start at the point where you got hit and then go back. And then sometimes it's like, okay, well, you were in the corner shielding and he's dash dancing in front of you. And then he either grabbed you or read your roll and grabbed you. Okay, well, you were actually, that's a good mix up. You were kind of doomed. How do we not be in the corner shielding? okay, well, you actually nared into the corner and put yourself there.
Yep.
So that's the thought. So you just like, every time you're in a doomed spot, you just zoom out one step further and be like, 2 seconds ago, could I have avoided this?
Yep.
Almost always yes, right?
Yeah.
Especially versus Dr. Mario.
I love that. Zooming out is such a good way to think about it. All of the things that we're saying, by the way, are like tools that people can use to analyze for themselves too, because they can just watch a VOD back and then analyze that situation and be like, why was I here? What was the mix-up? Something I like asking too is like, why did you do X thing? Like, let's say you did do an early down air against Dr. Mario and he shield grabbed you. Was there utility in doing the down air? If the answer is no, which it was in my lesson, it's like, can't we just cut out early down air from
Forever.
neutral?
Yeah.
Forever. Never do it again, ever, right? Like, and it's quite literally that simple. Like, Melee boils down to like, okay, we analyze the situation. Okay, I down air and got shield grab. Why did I down air? Was it going to combo? No. Would it give me like the most amount of damage if I could hit them with any attack? No. Did it leave me in a good position? No. Like, okay, well, it's only risky then, right? If we're and again, my whole view of the game is risk reward. We got to figure this out right now. What are we doing instead? Melee is so like kind of limitless, kind of not. Of course, if you're explaining it to a newer player, you wouldn't say that it's limitless because then it becomes very overwhelming. But it's like, you know, instead of doing that down air, we could have done a billion different things, and like you could, and like that's the cool thing about analyzing for yourself. Because like you're not on somebody else's time like you would be necessarily with a coach or something. You can pause that situation and think about that one situation for like a couple hours or something. You know, probably not a couple hours, but
that actually brings up to like the next point for me, which is kind of like out of game stuff with lessons. Because like, of course, when you're getting lessons, you're mainly thinking about the in-game stuff, right? Like, oh, they're going to teach me how to get better at the in-game stuff. But a lot of times it's about like kind of managing like expectations and like knowing how to improve and stuff like that. Because what you described there, like, yeah, you might have to spend a lot of time analyzing that down air against Dr. Mario in the corner. And then what you'll solve that, and you'll go like, oh, I'm ready. I'm going to fight a Dr. Mario. And then he just full hops around and it never comes up. And you're like, what? Did I waste my time? You know?
Yeah.
But actually getting better at Melee is just doing that over and over and over and over and over and over again. You know? Because you kind of like, we come up with like generalized concepts for a bunch of specific situations, right? So when we say like, oh yeah, fight for center stage, and then like you try to fight for center stage, oh, but he outplayed me in the corner with this take laser turn on up tilt. It's like, well, okay, that's actually what you have to solve now. Take laser turn on up tilt, you know? So you have like general rules, and then you just solve very specific situations, and you need to do this thousands of times. There's actually so many specific situations. Even just with corner pressure, you have to take into account like how close to them are you in the corner, percents, stock leads, invincibility, you know, like matchups and stuff like that. So there's like so many variables that you have to like take into account. It can be easy to just be like, but I did the center stage thing. Why am I losing? Okay, well now we have to get to the details. It's like step one, do the generalized thing well, and then figure out the details as to why it's working or not.
Yeah. This is essentially the exact same thing, a kind of different kind of. But I had a lesson with a Falco that wanted to learn how to beat Samus. And it's like, well, I know a lot about how to beat Samus, to be honest with you. I've played against Duck and Morse Code a billion times in my life. I haven't lost to a Samus in a few years at this point. So I'm like, perfect. I'd love to talk about Samus. And I'm like, look, all you got to do, essentially, is you laser her. She's going to want to wave dash back because she's thinking that you're going to come in with the aerial. What an idiot. Now she's in the corner. What a loser. And it's like, she's awful in the corner. So then, once she's given up all the stage, you approach, and then, you know, it's awesome. You do late aerial light shield. Her whole life is in shambles. And then they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. I can't wait to go beat every Samus I've ever played. And then they played the same Samus the next week. And that Samus just kept full hop naring into center stage. And the person was like, dude, I just got destroyed by this guy. I got like 3-stocked over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, that full hop naring as Samus into center stage is awful. But we didn't talk about how to beat that. So now, okay, well, let's go. There's a reason why Samus doesn't do this all the time. So, okay, actually, let's back it up for a second. Let's see why is this bad for Samus? Let's think about some general rules and blah, 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 blah.
So first of all, I had a very similar experience where a Samus lesson just like 2 days ago or something.
Nice.
Same sort of thing where I was like, how does Samus hit you most of the time? It's either up B out of shield or wave dash back down smash. And I was like, neither of those are moving forward. She's just waiting for you to run into up B out of shield or wave dash back down smash. That's it, you know? They like went on unranked, and the first match was the Samus, and they just bopped him. And they're just like, they just like lasered in place and like took their hand off the controller, watch him whiff a down smash, and like hit him. And they're like, wow, is it just that easy? And then they played Samus and went on unranked, and like the Falco would just early approaching down air, and like, I don't understand. Why are they doing that? I'm just sitting in shield, and then they down air me, and I up B. I was like, but why are they doing? Is that what I look like when I stand up? That's what you do.
That is funny.
But on the topic of beating bad options, that's also huge, because I actually have like a very stark memory of Marth, where like I was really studying Marth and getting better at Marth, and I'm gonna call out the name here, but I lost a set to John Wick a long time ago in Arizona. He's a pretty good Marth now. He was like really young at the time, and like the entire match was him doing full hop, full drift forward, late forward air.
Okay, yep.
And like my answer, quote unquote, at the time was to like dash it back, dodge the forward air, right? But he was actually taking the entire stage, and then once he late forward airs, it's safe. Like you can't punish a late forward air, right? So I would just repeatedly be fighting from the corner, like kind of what we're describing, right? Like I didn't have this thought of like, oh, he's just walking into center stage badly, I should contest center stage. Right? So I was just kind of letting him walk me to the corner, late forward air, and then I can't whiff punch it. He would late forward air, dash back, and I was like, oh shit, you know? That's like very similar to the Samus thing. But then I was like, wait, I've never seen Mango deal with this, because the top Marths don't do this. So you actually also have to learn how to beat the bad options and kind of understand why the top players aren't doing certain things. And it tends to be simpler than the good options to solve, right? Like, how do you beat Samus who just full hop nairs at you? Well, you can actually just turn around, you know, and just there's walk away and then up tilt, you know? It's like the actual answer to this is not hard if you know it's coming, right? It's just that your brain is just like, whoa, I'm so focused on like dashing forward and cornering her, but when she jumps over me, my brain just is 2 steps behind, right?
It's interesting. I agree that usually the like bad things are simpler to solve, which makes it really nice. But like the one of the sad realities, and it's just like I wish I could tell people there's a shortcut, but there's really not, is like you need to learn how to beat bad options and good options. Like the bad options, they aren't bad just on their you know, inherently. They're bad because of a reason. You have to figure that out. But the problem is, well, maybe not the problem, but one of the kind of annoying things about improving at Melee is like maybe you do learn how to beat some like good options, and you like beat up your local Fox player who's like pretty good. He's like slightly better than you in skill or whatever. And then you travel out of state, and there's this guy who's just full hop nairing and only full hop nairing. And he beats you, and you're like, dude, that guy's like, he's not even supposed to beat me, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. You need to go put in the work, just like you did to beat a good player, to go beat the bad player.
If that person was at my weekly and I played them every week, like I know I would figure out how to beat this, but you got to be ready for all versions of people like this when you go to a national, because there's a bunch of specialists who are like, I'm really good on the right platform of Battlefield. And you're like, geez, like I need to figure out this guy just only does that, and I need to get good at that, right?
A solid example is, right, like Marth is really bad against lasers, right, is like kind of a general thing. So like, okay, what are our general rules against Marth? Okay, we're going to take the ground control, we're going to use our lasers, push them to the corner, hit them on stage when we can, but essentially laser and control the ground. And then you play against a Marth from out of state or something you've never played against, and he sits on the side platform. And you're like, what? Okay.
Ginger versus Cobble Famicom, I think.
True. Yeah, go back and look at, I can't remember how many lasers I shot.
I think the VOD is gone. I tried to look it up in a lesson recently, and I couldn't find it.
That's so funny, because that was from a Drug Fox lesson. He told me, well, actually, I was talking to Sammy in person when he told me about it. He said that I need to be heartless in those situations. Exactly. And I was like, wow, that is powerful stuff. So Cobalt goes to side platform, and I was like, heartless.
Yeah, you're up a stock, and you're like, I will shoot lasers. For context, for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Ginger shot lasers for, I think it was like a minute straight, or a minute and a half straight, while Cobalt just sat on, literally not moving, not dash dancing, just stood on the side platform, and then eventually was like, well, I waited a full minute, and Ginger just didn't just kill himself into me, and then he like runs off and gets laser grabbed or something.
No, that was a good one. That's a great example. But yeah, you have to learn how to beat the bad options, and also determining what is or isn't a bad option is really hard too.
Yeah.
But again,
luckily it doesn't really matter, right?
It really doesn't matter. Yep.
Yeah, you just have to learn to beat the option, right? And then like it makes you feel better to say that like, oh, it's a bad option. They're a bad player. Ego, you know?
So
but realistically, you just need to know how to beat the option.
Yeah. I will say really quickly, it's if you have the knowledge or if you want to ask a coach about it, a lot of times it's easy to figure out what bad options are because one, they're easy to beat for your character, right? Like your move will just beat out that move and it's like on reaction, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is again risk reward. So if they're doing something extremely risky, but they don't get that much reward from it, it's like, well, this is awesome. It's like a Falco forward smashing at 0, right? Like if their opponent's at 0, it's like this is risky for no reason. So it's like, well, how do we beat that option, right? That might be a simpler one to solve than like, okay, my opponent's doing like late down air dash back laser. How the heck do I beat the sequence, right? And so that again just goes back to the bad situations. A lot of the times are just simpler to solve than the complicated situations.
And I think that one other aspect is that you actually eventually don't need to solve every situation because you will just win like versus bad options. And this kind of goes back to when we were talking about like punish game being the thing that matters. Like if your opponent's doing something and they aren't killing you off of it, actually just doesn't matter. Like you don't need to, you can continue to get hit by it every time they do it and not adapt. And in fact, you shouldn't adapt. If your game plan is like, I'm fishing for my big move that combos and they're stuffing me and dealing 8%, then like you should continue to look for the big combo and take the 8% every time it happens. You know?
One thing,
and go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say quickly. This brings up a perfect example that it comes up from my past, which is I remember Duck and Heartstrings. I don't know if you know Heartstrings. Good Sheik player. So Duck, Samus player. For anybody that doesn't know, Heartstrings, Sheik player. And so what's really good in the matchup is Sheik's auto cancel fair. Right? Like, it's just really good against Samus. What the heck is she going to do? Well, she has essentially, like, one option, and it's not that good, which is she has to stuff it preemptively with a full hop nair. Yeah. And so Duck he played against Heartstrings for the first time, and Heartstrings got destroyed, of course. But Duck, like, full hop naired to stuff one of the auto-cancel fairs, and Heartstrings didn't do it a single other time. And, like, you know, Omar was like, what could I have done differently? Duck's like, I mean, I hit you one time and you stopped doing like your best thing. Like you literally, it doesn't matter. Keep doing your thing. Exactly. Like if you're going to kill them off that opening, which again, it's in Sheik versus Samus, so you're not going to kill them. But it's very important that you continue doing your good options and sometimes not even adapting to what they're doing. Keep forcing your
Exactly.
way.
And it kind of like punish game against floaties tends to not be like true punishes. It's kind of like what we described with the Peach of like, well, you're juggling her, you're edge guarding her, you're ledge trapping her, you're corner pressuring her, you're juggling her. That is like punish game. All of that is just what punish game looks like sometimes, where it's like you just keep him in a bad spot. So it's that like once you auto cancel fair a Samus in the corner, your punish game is just to keep auto cancel fairing her in the corner. You know, like it's not a combo, but like you know,
essentially,
that's punish game. You know, the other thing I wanted to talk about in this context of like risk reward too is defense, which is the flip side of punish game basically, because like your goal really is to have a better punish game than your opponent. That is like we want the best punish game possible, but the meaningful variable here is the difference in punish game between the two of you, right? That's another thing about top players that makes them really hard to beat and why they win 90-95% is because they have such good defense that your punish game goes way down. So they don't even need a better punish game. They already like by default, just if you had the same but they have good defense, your punish game goes way down, theirs stays the same, you're doomed. There's a lot of times where good defense and good punish will circumvent these weird scenarios, like a Marth full hop fairy. Like if I'm really good at CC down tilt against Marth forward air or something, right, and I just like every time he full hops, I just run under him and I hold down. And then he can never fair grab. That's not a true combo against me. Well, suddenly I'm fishing for like a big hit and he never combos off it and sometimes gets reversal. Now I don't really need to like solve full hop forward air in neutral because like I account for it in punish and defense.
Yep, absolutely. So, this was like insane, right? Back when I think it was like 2017, maybe a little bit earlier than that, when slide off DI became a big thing. And it's like, oh, Marths were getting like free wins or whatever. And then slide off DI happened and it's like, oh, like you got fair grabbed, big whoop, LOL. Of course, it's gotten much more complicated since then. But it's just like, oh, if your opponent knows how to slide off DI, you get 30% 100% off of your fair grab as Marth. If they don't know how to slide off the eye, you're maybe killing them. That was a situation to me that really showcased that exact concept that you're talking about.
The next thing I had here was to talk about kind of what you found to be the difference between like whatever metrics you want to use, but like low, mid, and high level players, and what lessons look like at those various levels.
This is a great topic. So for me, I don't know what it's been like in your experience, but I've had students of all different calibers at this point. I've had some top 100 people that I've coached. I've also had some people that are very new to the game, like in their first year. And something, I mean, we kind of talked about it before the podcast. Spoiler alert. We actually talk, sometimes.
Insane.
Yeah, crazy. So what we were kind of mentioning is that, especially, and I noticed this too, when I coach very low-level players, like they're really new to the game, a lot of times the issues that they're having are all execution-based. They aren't even really at a point yet where they can start thinking about, well, how do I want to beat my opponent's exact option? Like, should I drift my thing slightly different? Like, yeah, I guess I like early nair their shield. Would you suggest that I like late nair double shine grab? It's like,
exactly.
We're not at that point. We got to like figure out how to move our character correctly.
Yeah.
Like shoot lasers at a good, timing, all that kind of stuff. And
like, even if you are going to early nair, you did it slow.
Yeah. You didn't fast fall afterwards. And there's so many things. Or like you started your nair too late and like still didn't fast fall, blah, blah, blah. There's like a billion things. And it's silly because in a lot of ways, those like lower level players, what you said, I'm pawning this off on you, is like, a better use of their time would literally be just to go like into the lab and like just grind out tech skill for that hour. Or like what it would be the best for you is like to literally nair their shield and have them attempt to shine out a shield every single time, right? Like literally use you as like a guinea pig, less as a coach. Which,
I like to compare this to tennis lessons. I don't know if you've ever played tennis.
Yep, we both played tennis.
Yeah, that's right. So I do know if you played tennis. But like in tennis lessons, you just have someone that's really fucking good at tennis just lob you balls slowly, repeatedly, and then they're like, oh yeah, you got to step forward with your foot, oh yeah, your stroke didn't follow through. And they're just like correcting your form, but you're like paying someone really good to just do something really simple with you over and over again. And that is like not normally the format for melee lessons, right? Where you're just like, oh yeah, let's just drill out a situation, and like I will just sit here and like shield and then roll in, and you try to punish my roll at a random timing, right? We just do that over and over and over again. And that can be very helpful with like low level players, just to get used to executing in a situation. Something.
Very true. What I try to do with those low level players is I still kind of go at it like it's a regular lesson. Like a lot of times it's just like joint VOD analysis essentially, with me giving my perspective. And what ends up happening is like I end up finding like 5 things that they hardcore messed up executionally that continues to get them punished. And I'm like, you just have to go practice these. And maybe
here's these 5 things.
Here's those 5 things. And that is what like low and mid-level players I've found are really looking for. They're looking for direction, right? They're not looking for like specifics so much as like a top player. Like I had lessons with Frenzy, and he was like, all right, when I play against this guy, he's literally doing this specific movement sequence. I couldn't come up with an answer. What do you think? And it's like, okay, let's think about the situation. That is not what happens with low and mid-level players. They want direction. How do I come up with game plans? Like, what should I be doing in general? What am I messing up? What should I be practicing? Those sorts of things. And so, the perspective of like, a guy's lobbing you a ball, but he's watching to see what the heck you're messing up when you're actually hitting it. And that is valuable. Because like you could have a ball machine, right? Or like Uncle Punch, right?
Right.
You
True.
Dang. Yeah, you could have...
I believe tennis had Uncle Punch before.
I know! It's literally the same thing. I always say melee and tennis are just so similar. Anyway, so like you could have this ball machine like lob you a ball or something, right? But the problem is you have no idea what the heck you're messing up. Why is the ball going into that? I don't know. Is it your grip? Is it your stance? Is it your swing? Like,
is it my fastball timing? Is it my drift? Is it my aerial timing?
Yeah, absolutely. So having mentors in situations like that when you're messing up is really important. I have you ever heard of Andrew Huberman?
Nope.
So Andrew Huberman, he's like a neuroscientist that works at Stanford. And he started a podcast, and he has this really awesome lesson, how the brain goes about learning and how important it is to mess things up. When you mess things up, your brain literally like opens itself up to like learning. It's like when you're messing up like that and you're prepared to learn, having a coach be like, this is what you can do differently. Your brain is just really receptive to those sorts of things. So I like watching the students flub around for however long. And then I'm like, listen, we got to talk about short hop laser. Okay.
Yeah.
We have to to talk about wave dashing. Why is wave dashing important? We can talk about it after you can do it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the things I wrote down here for like lower level players, number one is talking about how to practice. Because we know they need to practice, right?
Yep.
Like they probably know they need to practice, but I actually get a lot of like, I'm not sure what I should do to practice or something, right? So I tend to be bad at coming up with like specific routines, like 5 minutes of
Me
wave
too,
dashing,
yeah.
11 minutes of like, it's like, I don't know, you just need to figure out how to practice whatever it is you're bad at.
Yep.
Sometimes just showing how I would practice one of these things, it's just like, oh, okay, I now see how I can like apply this to whatever it is I'm bad at, right? And there's like 20xx and Uncle Punch, and there's different ways to use both of them and stuff. So it's like kind of talking about how to get better at execution is big, because it's like a given that they need to get better at execution. And then number two is like my basic intro to macro, like just saying center stage, and like that phrase is like tends to be a big deal. Just even though they're not really going to utilize it correctly, it is helpful to start, not yeeting yourself into the corner.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like work on execution, and then if ever like in neutral you're like not sure what to do, just go to center stage and then work on execution. Like don't really worry about neutral, other than I'm supposed to loosely be fighting for center. And then the last thing I wrote down was just mentality. You tend to have some sort of baseline for like how I want to get good, how good I want to be, the process of improvement, the process of surpassing other people when you feel like you can't or something.
Yep. So
especially for lower level players that have been playing for a long time, that tends to it's hard to like break your mold that you already have. You actually have to unlearn things before you learn things.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to touch on that, actually, that's a good thing to bring up. One thing about habits is like a lot of lower and mid-level players have a lot of like really obvious habits. I think top players have habits too, but they're slightly less obvious. But like the best way to change a habit or get rid of a habit is to change it to something else, right? And you just want to improve that habit. What do I do after I laser in this situation? Well, it's not let go of my controller. It's, maybe do a late aerial or something.
Although
sometimes letting go of controller can be really good. And I've been a staunch routine like hater for a while. I think if you wake up every day and you're like, all right, it's 11 a.m. time to practice from 11 till 12:30, and I'm gonna do 5 minutes of wave shines, 5 minutes of ledge dashes. Well, don't you, after a year, can't you already wave shine? Like, why are you still practicing wave shining? Like, switch it to something that you're bad at. So, something that I have tried to do for my students in the past, and I don't know exactly how well that it's worked, is I end up watching them, right? Like we talk about, I figure out what they're bad at. And I'm like, well, you're messing this up a lot, and it's extremely important. So, literally practice, like, I don't necessarily give like 10 minutes. I've tried to do that, but like essentially I just weight it. Like this is a thing that you should spend a majority of the time on, or like a big bulk of your practice routine time on. This is something that you mess up sometimes and it's kind of small. Make sure that you're able to do it, but really like the big thing, right? I try to make that more obvious for the student because it's hard to figure out, like we were kind of talking like bad options from your opponents and stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out like, well, what's the meaty, important stuff? I have a video about this where I compare melee to speedrunning. You wouldn't speedrun, and like, let's say it's world record's 10 minutes, and you're at like the 3-hour mark. You're essentially doing it casually. You're like, yay, I finished my first run. It's 3 hours. Okay, what am I gonna do? Well, in the very first 5 seconds, I could have frame perfect wall kick to save 3 frames around the corner here. Like, no, what's the big skip that saves like 45 minutes? Go learn the big skip that saves 45 minutes.
Armada used to talk about that all the time, especially now that he's a speedrunner, where he's just like, just fix the issue. Just fix the big issue. Like he's like, he compared it to people like they do like math homework or something and they like don't find the answer and they're like, eh. Well, you don't know the answer. The answer's in the back of the book. Like, just go to the back of the book, find the answer. Just figure out why it's so like we know the answer exists. Like.
That is funny. I really like to just make that apparent to my students, especially at the lower level. Like, this is important for this reason, so you need to fix it. But I feel like there's some melee players like this. But it'd be so funny if there's some speedrunner out there that's able to do all the frame perfect tricks, but just like doesn't know any like major skips.
That is an architect for sure.
Yes,
right?
it's like the classic, like, oh, should I learn how to multi-shine? It's like, bro, we're not at that point yet.
I like watching, I watch Simply, the Mario 64 speedrunner, and he'll like showcase stuff all the time whenever like someone else does something cool in Mario 64 or something. And one of my favorite videos, this was a while ago, it was on like a new cannonless setup, and it's like, you don't even need to do the setup, you just run up there, and if you do everything perfectly and you set your camera right, you can get it. And this guy did a speed run of, I think it was like 10 cannonless in a row or something.
Oh, wow.
And this guy got this set up 10 times in a row, like, and simply couldn't do it once.
Wow.
and he was the world record holder for 120 star, right? And it's just like, that is the archetype of the 20xx bot that can like do 6-7 shines on shield.
That is so true. Yep. In my speedrun, I speedrun Super Mario Sunshine. There are people who grind ILs, which are individual levels. Yeah. And those people, some people that have like IL world records, which is like, you have to do so much frame perfect crazy bullshit. It's like those people have like a 125 or something. Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not the best at the game or something? It's like, well, IL strats really aren't like run safe. There's like a lot of reasons why you might not do them. It saves 2 seconds. Like, they're like, I can't hit honey skip, but I do have the IL world record and Bianco 100s or something. It's like, Jesus Christ. This actually transitions kind of nicely because we're kind of talking about setting up students for success and what it takes for them to improve. But we were talking about like, what is the motivation of a person that comes into a lesson, right? A lot of people say they want to improve, but sometimes that's not even necessarily the focus. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that what we talked about before with like the best use of our time would be to lob balls at you or whatever, right? And a lot of times they just don't want to do that. Yep. So I think that like some people actually just want to like learn more about the game, and there's like a lot of ways to like enjoy Melee. And there's the Kadanos of the world or whatever, or like the budding Kadanos of the world who just want to know like science about the game. They're like, ooh, can we just like study a Mango VOD and just like figure out why he's winning in the corner situation? And like, they might not be super interested in like figuring out how to apply that to themselves, but they like enjoy that process of like analyzing Melee. And it's funny to like find the balance between like what you're offering as a coach, I think, because there's like on paper, I'm supposed to do whatever I can to make you better at Melee. That is like my on paper job description, is I need to improve you at Melee. And that's kind of like how I would be rated as a coach, is how much better you improve at Melee after my lessons. But that is not always the goal. I think there's like this dichotomy where sometimes I just have to make sure that you're having a good time, that like you're paying money and you don't feel like your money's going to waste. And that's either because you feel like you're improving at Melee, which is what you paid for, or because you're having a good time, which is what you paid for. You want to like enjoy your hour and like learn something or like have some sort of benefit to yourself.
Yeah. One funny thing I think about when you talk about, and that's absolutely true, some people just want to have a good time, and like they might not even realize like that's kind of what they're looking for. They want to talk they just enjoy talking about Melee or learning about Melee.
Talking about Melee is great, dude.
I agree.
I'm doing it right now.
Well, me too. So like the thing is, imagine there's like a Yelp review for coaches, right? And one guy is like, oh yeah, I would highly recommend Squid. We had a great time. And somebody's like, did you learn much? He's like, no, but we had a really good time.
Exclamation point. Dude, I had one lesson one time where near the end of it, he wanted to show me a clip from The Office. He was just like, no, I paid. This is what we're doing. We're watching this clip from The Office.
That's funny. One thing I was thinking of too. So at the beginning of my lessons, especially when I'm working with a student that has either like signed up for multiple lessons already or something, I know we're going to be working together for a while. I ask those people right off the bat. I'm like, what are we doing this for? Right? Like, be honest with me so I can get to the point. Right? If you want to watch Office clips, dude, I love The Office. Let's do it.
That was Beauty King, right? Recently had a tweet where he was like, we watched anime for 3 hours.
It's like that person paid for it. Like, cool, I'm down or whatever. But we got to know what the heck we're doing. Yeah. And one specific situation, most people are like, I just want to get like as good as I can. I've been playing for a while. I've like gotten into some plateaus and I really want to get out of it. I had one guy that was like, and honestly, he's like, I just really want to beat my friend that I've been losing to for a long time.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, we can watch specifically that guy, and I will tell you specifically how to beat that guy and nobody else, if that's really what you want. And he's like, to be honest, that's what I want. And it's, it's working out. But it's funny how some people don't want to be the best in the world or like know the most about the game. Some people just want to have a good time or like just improve as much as they can for a little while.
My thought on that is that like there's almost this like thought that if you're getting coaching, it must be because you want to be the best in the world. That's actually not the case at all, though. Yeah. Right. I think there's like a lot of different potential benefits to coaching, and regardless of what type of melee enjoyer you are, there's probably something that a coach can do to improve that, right? So if you're trying to become the best, the coaching benefits are a little more obvious, right? Like, oh yeah, they can teach you in-game stuff. Some people just really like watching melee and enjoy it as a spectator, and they play on the side and stuff. Watching melee becomes more fun as you get better at melee, right? So sometimes you could just like learn to like understand situations better, so that when you're watching melee, you see different things, and that's cool too, right? So it's kind of like different melee enjoyers can enjoy lessons for different reasons, even if it's not as obvious as I want to be the best.
Have you had any lessons where you don't look at melee at all?
So especially with like repeat students, sometimes I have lessons. I've tried like different formats, such as they play unranked and screen share, or we play melee with each other, or we go and just like lob balls or something, right? Where like we set up situations like that. And I have had some where we're just gray screen the entire time. It's like a 1 hour discussion about something, right? And either the game, or I've had like 1 hour discussions about mentality, like competitive mentality and stuff, right? And we didn't even look at melee. We didn't even talk about melee. It ends up being like kind of like almost like therapy, right? Where you're like, this is what you want out of life.
The thing is, neither of us are licensed therapists, but sometimes lessons can almost feel like that. And I've had, I think, 2 or 3 lessons now where, like you said, we didn't really talk about melee, although like mentality within the context of like, I want to improve at melee was the center focus. But it was really like, this person's struggling in life, but they want to improve at this game. And the thing is, I'm not saying that you should get lessons instead of go to therapy if you have issues, but like most coaches are people that are going to be able to understand the struggle of a person who's trying to get good at a game, but like has a full-time job, or is like trying to work their way through relationships while like they have a tournament coming up this weekend. And it's like, we have perspective on those things. And so I feel like that's at least the reason why they want to talk to us about it, which is cool. People don't think of that as like a benefit of like coaching, right? All right, Squid the Falco genius. I'm a Falco player, gonna go learn about Falco. And to be honest, when I started lessons with Drug Fox, that's how it was for me. I have had lessons with Drug Fox where I was the student, probably like 5 times now, where we've literally just talked. I'm like, dude, like Twitch chat just keeps blowing me up, Sammy. And it's like, what does this have to do? I'm not talking about like, okay, well, my down air is going to be minus, plus 0 if I get it as low as possible. So, all that stuff. But I'll talk to him about like some of the struggles of what it's like to be a melee player, or like how traveling is really taking a beating on me. And like, does he have any suggestions for that? And I feel like, that's a unexpected benefit of having a coach.
Yeah, this actually ties in to something I was thinking about when you were talking about like training routines and prioritizing stuff. Because I kind of had this thought to where you should kind of like change your training routine every 2 weeks ish, 1 to 2 weeks. And basically you should just practice reprioritizing, right? What is the most important reason why I'm losing right now, right? And what you're describing is actually oftentimes the most important reason why you're losing in melee,
true.
Right? Especially as you get to higher and higher levels, where it either becomes ultra specific game details, like you mentioned with like the frenzy lesson, right? Where you're like, I'm learning to beat specific top player good options. But also mentality stuff becomes huge, because that is something that you have to like learn to manage. And oftentimes that's a journey that is seen as being done alone, right? But there's, sports players get sports psychologists that really help them manage a lot of stuff for stuff like this. And actually it's very helpful to have someone be like, oh, that is a common issue. Here's how you can help deal with it. Better sleep, better food. Here's a perspective shift on that issue that can kind of help you and stuff like that. And especially if you're getting regular lessons, then like once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, you can reprioritize every lesson and be like, this week, actually mentality is the most important part. All right, this week, Sheik's late forward air is the most important. And it's like, those are completely different things, But it's just true. And one last thing is like lessons end up being a spot where you can talk about that stuff, because I think that it's just seen as John's if you talk about anything that's outside of the game.
I know,
like publicly, which actually I personally just don't talk about stuff like that publicly ever. But I can see why like some people feel the need to, if you don't have like that outlet, and then it just becomes worse. Like
Yep.
you're like, I think I should address this. I'm gonna talk about it, and then people just shit on you. And
Yep.
you're like, what the fuck? Like I really did feel bad about this. And they're like, yeah, well, you're discrediting your opponent. And you're like, no, I wasn't. I'm sorry. You know?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, of course, I have a million horror stories of that happening. I'm like, oh, dang, rough weekend. My controller is kind of like, literally falling apart in my hands. And people are like, you just don't want to say that you lost. And it's like,
oh, so you're saying Zamu sucks. And
yeah, it's like, no, like, he's good and whatever. I just think I probably could have done a little bit better if I had a controller. But the amount of times I have gone to Sammy and been like, Sammy, I'm being honest with you. He's like, I know, Avery, you're always honest with me. I'm like, I swear my controller's messing me up. And he's like, I believe you, and that sounds really rough. I'm like, oh, thanks, Sammy, for understanding. But like, the thing is, any coach in Melee, I think, would understand the struggles of being a Melee player, whether it's mentality or literally just things outside of the game that influence the things that happen within the game.
Yeah.
So talking to somebody like that, instead of talking to Twitch chat or talking to Twitter about your problems, where like there's just a million Redditors that have probably never gone to a tournament that are like, LOL, you just are afraid to lose or something. Your ego's huge.
Yeah.
It's like talking to somebody that understands your issues is so nice.
Because you actually have to talk about them too. That's like the other thing is like, if you just ignore things like I was giga nervous at the tournament and didn't play well, and then like if you just ignore that, you will continue to lose because you're giga nervous at tournaments or whatever, right?
Yep.
So it's like you have to address it, but you can't address it in a place where people are just gonna like shit on you or for whatever.
Yeah.
Reason, So yeah.
One of the funny things is there are things that in my like most frustrated or like sad and angry states I would say, but I would never say, in any other emotional state, right? Like right after I'd lost, I'd be like, dude, that guy was just fucking camping me.
Yeah.
Such a loser. Like he flies out all the way to Virginia just to camp people. It's like, but like if I said that on Twitter, I'm getting roasted and I deserve it, right? I sign up for the tournament. Like this person's trying to beat me. Like good for them.
Exactly.
Literally
like,
good for them.
No part of you actually believes that he should not hit those sequences of buttons in game.
Yeah, literally zero part. But something that Sammy has been useful for, and that I have also tried to be useful for to my students, is like, I am a person that understands that you sometimes just need to vent out your stupid frustrations. And I'm not going to judge you for any of your stupid frustrations.
Yeah.
I've had stupid frustrations. I have them all the time.
Exactly.
So, I message Sammy all the time, all my stupid frustrations. And his suggestion, and what I would suggest to people also in the chat or anybody watching, is like, have a person, if it's like a friend or a girlfriend, even somebody outside of Smash, if you just like, after you lose, being able to vent to that person, your dumb frustrations, come back an hour later with a clear head, like, that is useful. And so again, another benefit of having a coach that has been where you've been.
Yeah, kind of figuring out too, like your best coping mechanism, because for me, I actually don't like doing that. I actually I really want to not talk to anyone for like sometimes upwards of like an hour after a tournament. So I would just like leave venues and like walk around like in the streets, and I would like walk in a random direction and like have to put up my phone GPS like, where was the venue again? Because I just like literally or something. So like because like sometimes what I would do is I would vent, and like as I'm venting, I'm like, I'm being so stupid right now, and then like I just like I get more tilted because now it's like, maybe if I wasn't thinking these stupid thoughts, I wouldn't have lost, like, and then I just like, and now they're hearing me be stupid. Oh God, I don't want to. So sometimes it's just like you just have to like actually analyze your mental state all the time, right? And that's why there is no like one solution. It's about reprioritizing constantly, and even with mentality and stuff like that. So coaches can sometimes, your job as a coach is all right, how do you feel after a tournament loss, and what would be helpful for you? Would it be venting, not talking to people? Some people just thrive on the hate, and they should go on Twitter, and then they should fight the people who should you're just like, yeah, do it. Block them all.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, most of the time, any of the high-level coaches, again, have probably tried about a million different things, right? Like, I've tried, walking around or leaving venues. I've also, tried venting on Twitter, which is not for me, but it could be for somebody else or whatever. I tried venting to people that are close to me, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you just need to, and I guess I'm saying that you need to because we're both coming at it from the perspective of a coach who cares about the improvement of that player. You just need to get to a point mentally where you feel as though you can be productive from that point. right?
Yeah.
And if you need to vent to somebody to cool off so you can get to that point more quickly and like go back and analyze, like, let's figure out what gets you to that point of productivity the most effective way, right?
Yep. Nice. So I think we should talk about, because we've kind of been talking about him now.
Yeah.
Fox. We should talk about like kind of our experience with lessons. I like to call it trickle down Sammynomics, where everybody kind of gets Sammy knowledge and trickles it down. But there's kind of like now there's way more coaches. Drugfox was kind of the first one to kind of like normalize it, right? And he's just one of the best minds of the game and stuff. So kind of cool like to see his like influence and stuff. But yeah, we can kind of talk about kind of our experience with kind of like other perspectives, kind of with the context of Drugfox had huge influence on most people, right? So
a fun question I think to start this off is because okay, so just for the chat, we have both taken Sammy lessons. That's kind of how we started. Have you ever had it where Sammy says something and you kind of feel like he's wrong, but you're just like, I'll just let him say his thing, but like maybe I prioritize that in like a slightly different way?
Yeah.
I can't think
of
a specific example. What's up?
Yeah, so I actually have like a unique perspective on like Sammy lessons. And I don't think I've ever like talked about this like publicly before, but I struggled to get the most out of Sammy lessons personally. So I only had Sammy lessons for like a few months. And actually I recently rewatched one of my old Sammy lessons and everything he said made perfect sense. and like since I've been giving lessons, you know how I describe things, how like I come up with mantras for like general rules for things, and then I zoom in onto specific and contextualize it with those mantras. And everything he told me, I was like, oh, he's just telling me to cover the greediest option. Oh, he's telling me to do this. Oh, he's telling me to prioritize center stage. Oh, he's telling me to be proactive off of the laser. And and I didn't quite understand his language at the time. And part of it too is sometimes you actually just need a long time to fix an issue.
Yeah, definitely.
He would tell me this thing and I was like, I don't understand. I can't do it, And then my next lesson, I'm like, Sammy, I'm still running into nairs. I don't know. It's like, no, you're supposed to run into those nairs for 6 months. That's how long it takes to solve,
Yep.
And so part of me at the time, like, because you do kind of have to go into coaching with right expectations of what you're trying to get out of coaching as well, right? Because we talked about it from the other side of like looking to see what the student is trying to get out of it. As a student, you can maximize your own benefits if you really know what you're going into and trying to get out of it. Because I had this loose idea that I want to get better at Melee, but I didn't know specifically what I wanted from Sammy, right?
Yeah. So for me, it happens to me all the time. There's generally a decently large audience, and I think some of the people are in the chat right now. When I get lessons from Sammy, there's like 15 people watching.
And a lot more that you don't see, because I actually personally get a lot of benefits from watching Sammy give lessons to other people. I actually like preferred that over getting lessons myself sometimes, because I'd get like self-conscious about stuff. But actually I've listened to like all of his lessons with you, to be honest.
Yeah. At this point I'm super used to people like being there and being like, okay, I'm still gonna point out everything stupid that I did. I'm gonna tell Sammy exactly how I feel. But so one of the things that comes up all the time in my Sammy lessons, I'm like, Sammy, you remember that lesson that we had like 2.5 years ago where you were telling me that I shouldn't jump off the side platform against Peach? I just figured out that I shouldn't jump off the side platform against Peach. And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty good not to do that. I'm like, all right, let's move on. Like, cool.
That's so good. All right, let's move on.
Yeah. Or like, man, one of the first discussions I had with Sammy, before I even got like formal lessons with him, is just like how broken laser in place is.
That's the Sammy classic.
Yeah.
In my brain.
You just come back some, time in the future where you're just like, wait a second, this is broken. And Sammy's like, yeah, it's broken.
Like, what do you think I meant when I said laser in place is broken? And you're like, it was up to interpretation.
Yeah, like it was like good, or maybe like it needed fixing. I don't know. But no, Sammy, obviously incredibly influential just in the coaching scene. And like you said, one of the first people to do it. I like how you said like trickle down Sammy knowledge, because even getting more specific with it, it's like I got Sammy lessons and I gave lessons to Frenzy, and now Frenzy is also giving lessons to people. But one of the funny things in this whole pyramid of how it all worked, so Sammy was giving me lessons, I was giving Frenzy lessons. But then Sammy started giving Frenzy lessons instead of me. So like they're giving lessons, but Frenzy's still giving lessons off to the. It's just a whole thing.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, no, Sammy's been a big eye opener. One of the cool things is that he understands a bunch of different character perspectives, which
Yeah, that's huge.
I'm kind of meshing in because I know this was a topic we also wanted to talk about, teaching people that play other characters. And in this instance, with a student asking about other characters, right, to Sammy, and like, it is so random sometimes. I'll be like, yeah, I'm having a hard time dealing with like Sheik's down smash on shield. He's like, well, I'm pretty sure if you get hit by the 2 hits, it's like minus 17. I'm like, yeah. Why do you know that? Oh, yeah, you were like literally top 10 in the world with Sheik. Right, yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to like shine on a shield falling like a full hop nair from Fox. And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like minus 7. I'm like,
yeah,
good to know, thank you. So I feel like his ability to kind of give you the perspective of other characters has been really useful.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about teaching other people when it comes to either explaining other characters or if they play a character that you don't?
Yeah. So I've only had lessons with 3 characters. Most of my students are Falcos. I've had 2 or 3 Peaches. Whomst is like an in-betweener for me because I basically mained Peach for like 6 to 9 months one year, you know?
Yep.
And like really hardcore studied her at the time. And I think too that like my Peach knowledge has gotten better over like, because like, okay, speaking of meshing topics, it's like we're kind of going to eventually talk about the benefits to ourselves of coaching, right? And I think that like seeing the game more strategically and like contextualized with certain things has helped a lot with my Peach, even though I haven't been playing that much Peach. So now when I like have a Peach student, it's like, well, I studied Peach a lot for like a year, and I've like studied the game a lot recently and know how to just apply that to Peach, right? So when I say play for Shine at low percents with Falco, and then I look at a Peach main, I'm like, okay, this one you actually want to play for down smash, you know? Or you want to play for grab because Nair just doesn't really lead to anything unless you can Nair down smash. You know? So suddenly it's like the same thing. I'm just like kind of, how can I apply these sort of concepts to Peach? And then the last character I've had is Fox, which once again is kind of similar to Falco, and I've played quite a bit of Fox. And it ends up being that like if it's higher level Fox, because like one of my students is Danny Phantom, who's
nice.
Pretty good Fox player.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, #1 in his state and stuff. So that's one where and he's like one of my longest standard students. So I've had like a lot of pretty high level Fox matches where it's like, okay, I'm actually not even sure if I would beat this person with Fox, you know? But I'm pretty sure I know what you should do better, you know?
Right, yeah.
And as you kind of like break down situations, it starts to make sense and stuff. So the more you do it, I think, especially when you can just figure out that it's a Falco topic being translated to Fox, right? And it's not just like, oh, I'm guessing. It's like, well, I know with Falco the solution is this. How can Fox kind of use his tools to get the same benefit, right?
So one of the things that's useful for me is my analytical brain is always on when I'm watching Melee, even if I'm watching it passively. If I'm watching Armada versus Mutaking, I'm like, okay, well, like, oh man, he hit him with that. That makes a lot of sense because, you know, Peach's full hop Nair coming from below on Marth, like he has a lot of struggles dealing with that because his fair starts up real high. And it's like, okay, well, this might be something that I could like bring up in a lesson, is that if you're playing Peach, maybe prioritizing the situations where Marth is above you and using full hop Nair because it comes out quickly, it lingers for a long time and gets underneath their fair could be something that's useful. So I just have like all this dumb data stored in my brain where like I kind of understand that stuff. But at one point I was giving a lesson to a Peach player that wanted lessons for Peach versus Samus. And it's like, I've never played that matchup in my life. Never even casually.
Barely even watched it.
Barely watched it. So what I did is I just went back and I watched Armada versus Plup. And it was from a set where Armada destroyed Plup. And I was like, what are the core things going on? I don't have to be a Falco player to... I mean, I don't have to be a Peach player. I can be a Falco player and still understand what are the core things going on. Why are they doing what they're doing? I had that skill set to figure that out, so I can translate that to a student pretty quickly. And I would imagine...
And you go back to your Falco thing, and you're like, she tries to up at a shield and wave dash back down smash. And then you watch Armada versus Plup, and you're like, oh, she actually still can't move forward. Right? Like Samus is still struggling to move forward. So how do you abuse that when instead of lasers, you have float, you know? Or something?
And there's so many general concepts within the game. Like I was talking earlier, like the concept of covering the greediest option, right? That doesn't necessarily only apply to Falco. It's very useful with Falco, absolutely. But like, well, could we have done that in this situation in Peach versus Samus? Absolutely. And was it probably the right thing to do? Absolutely. So those general concepts of like holding onto center stage, punishing your opponent when they're in the corner, keeping it simple when they're in the corner, thinking about the character's strengths and weaknesses, like pairing those against each other, is something that I found useful. And again, this sort of stemmed from talking about Sammy. But, you know, also a gigantic student of the game who obviously knows a bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah, I like in lessons where they like bring up a situation and I'm like, that reminds me of 2017 Mango versus blah, blah, blah. And you pull up like a random clip, stock 3, you skip to the video and they're like, why do you remember this interaction? And it's like the third stock of game 3 in a matchup you don't even play. And I was like, oh, yeah, but look how Levin destroyed this.
Yeah. One of my, I actually just had this in my most recent Sammy lesson last week, where we were watching Falco vs. Peach, which we've watched a million times. And he goes, have you ever seen me playing against Kalamazoo from the Shine 2017 crew battle? I'm like, no, Sammy, I've never seen you versus Kalamazoo from the Shine 2017 crew battle. He's like, oh, I think this could actually be really important about this situation. And it was really cool and instructive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. So Drug Fox has definitely inspired me as a coach and sort of given me a perspective on coaching. I will say that like coaching styles, I think, are going to differ no matter who you get coaching from. Because everybody sees the game at least in like a slightly unique way. Yeah. But do you find yourself in your lessons, and I kind of asked this question before the podcast, but like, do you find yourself saying in your lessons, like, well, in my Drug Fox lesson, this is how he explained it to me? Yeah.
So, yeah, and I also think I have a couple other influences, like in my brain, and so, okay, I think it's useful to categorize things, even if it's like an oversimplification or generalization. So in my brain, there's like 3 types of Falcos. There's the Drug Fox type of Falco, the PPMD type of Falco, and the Mango type of Falco.
Sure.
And like it is definitely an oversimplification, but Mango approaching lasers, Sammy lasers in place, and PPMD laser dash dances. And there's like so much more that goes into that in terms of like how their play styles evolve from that, and also how they talk about the game is different because of kind of those 3 options: laser dash dance, approaching laser, or laser in place. And so a lot of times I like will think of it like, okay, Sammy would have done this and he would say it's because of this. Mango might do this, but the reason he makes that work is because of this. And then PPMD would say that that's terrible. So it's just like I have like these like categories in my brain, and then like my play style is some like my favorite parts of those 3, and then it falls somewhere on the spectrum, but I don't really know where it is. Like it's not my job to like categorize myself. You know? You should never, I think, describe your play style, because then you're just putting yourself in a box, right? You should be open to every option, and you'll just end up favoring certain ones, and then people will be like, oh yeah, he kind of plays like this. You know? And that might be accurate, but you should never try to put yourself in a box and like, no, I will specifically not do that. It's not my style.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like maybe we had even hit on this in a previous bird call. Like maybe it was a bird watching thing where we did like Falco did this. It's like, I just don't want to use the platforms because like I'm just more of a grounded Falco.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, bro, it's an option in the game. Like, what are you doing?
Dude, Kira and I used to always say there would be like an edge guard. It's like a guaranteed edge guard. You just like run off, double jump down air, and it's a kill. And it's not really my style.
Oh God! Funny you mentioned Kira. I still haven't blocked on Twitter. No idea why I haven't blocked on Twitter, but I think it's just gonna stay that way.
That's so funny.
So I'm gonna ask for my sense in chat. That's funny.
Now you won't get the whatever his game, Epiphany City.
Oh, true. That actually looks like a cool game. But one thing I was going to mention, what was I going to mention? Oh, I actually, funnily enough, had a Sammy lesson where we didn't really talk about Melee, but I talked about societal pressure on playstyles. People want you to play a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, for me, of course, I have like 20,000 followers or whatever. People are going to call me lame if I laser camp or whatever. People are going to come into my Twitch chat and give me hate or whatever because, like, can't believe you laser camped S2J, you jerk. And it's like, okay, brother, it's an option in the game, okay? And I wasn't laser camping him. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just a fan of that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it goes down, even just like a low-level player or something.
Yeah.
Your friends influence you. You ever have a friend? When I started playing Melee casually, at first I was playing with my brother and his friends. We said that using the C stick to do smash attacks was cheap, and it's like, huh? Like this is societal
I remember,
pressure.
Like,
that's...
I was one of the better friends of my Melee friend group before Melee, right? And I was good. I made Falco. And I was good at forward smashing without the C stick. That was like one of the main things I was good at. And I would remember every now and then I would get, like, the match is close and I would be tempted to use the C stick. And he won't even know, you know? And I was like, no, I'll do it legit. And then I'll get it and I'll nail it. Like, yeah.
Oh God. But really, it does it goes that deep.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that we're past the point of like literally calling the C stick cheap or something.
Yeah.
But people will be like, bro, you're really just gonna like, I mean, Bobby Big Ball says this about me all the time. I'll be like, down air shine, down air shine, down air shine, forward smash on FD.
Yeah.
You'd be like, dude, he's so lame going for the forward smash. And his whole chat's like, dude, Ginger's fucking lame. He's forward smashing. It's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Do you it's a DI mix up and it's covering the greediest option. I'm just trying to win, okay?
Dude, straight up, I used to joke that I would make a combo video called Cover DI Out Gang. And it's just combos that end with strong back air at 50. Whole combos. It's just boom, 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 back air. And then I like down smash their side B or something. And the entire combo video would be this. I'm only covering DI out. And I just love the concept that like you get to a mix-up situation. And it's not just in Punish Game 2, although that is a great example of like forward smash versus soft reverse back air. You can choose the cool one that covers DI in or the lame one that covers DI out. And you come to this crossroad. And like if you're the cool player, you play this side of the mix-up. And if you're a lame player, you play this side of the mix-up. And it's kind of the same thing where like a lot of times that is not a thing at all. It's just a mix-up and you have to kind of look at it, right? Because, for example, when we talked about the start of the game, you both spawn, you should fight for center stage. And there's no cool and lame option. Not running forward is bad. It's not cool or lame. You should run forward 100% of the time when you spawn, right? And then once you get to a certain range, mix-ups start happening. You could continue to move forward, which is cool. Or you could stop moving forward, which is lame. But you should mix up between the two. You shouldn't do the same thing every time, because if you do the cool option and never do the lame option, well, suddenly it doesn't make sense anymore to call them cool and lame, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's clearly you should use both. Right? And you move forward to a certain spot, which is objectively correct, and then the objectively correct thing is to randomly mix up between the available options, right? So it just doesn't make sense a lot of times to think of things in that framework of like cool and lame.
It's so good that you mentioned this. So Mango was talking, you remember, so Fiction switched to Falco, right? You know that. So Fiction was playing...
I'm actually a huge fan of Fiction's Falco.
Me too. Yeah. I think there's a lot of Ginger influence in the Fiction Falco, I will say. Anyway, but so Fiction was playing against Mango, and Mango's chat is like, oh, Fiction just keeps talking about how he's going to optimize Falco. And Mango found that really annoying at first. He was like, dude, you can't optimize mix-ups. Like, they're mix-ups. You choose one or the other, and that depending on your opponent's option, that will lead you one of a couple ways. There's no, like, thing you do every time. And he's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And like Fiction had never meant that like, oh, I will just choose the right option every time, and Mango must be choosing the wrong option more often than me. It's like that's not really how it functions. But so it's interesting to kind of talk about that dichotomy of things. And Mango understands that as a concept because he is one of the best in the world at mixing up those things. I've seen so many times Mango, I mean, go watch Mango versus Leffen from any set. Like sometimes he does like, you know, a strong back air, but he's covering DI in, right? It's like a strong back air like 40, so it's going to combo. And then he combos off the DI in, and it's like, oh, what a genius for covering the DI in. But then sometimes he's in that same spot, and he rips a forward smash. They fly off stage, and you're just like, oh, shoot, that was cool, too, because, like, he's covered the DI out. So people to randomly categorize, like, what DI somebody's covering is, like, cool or lame is, like...
As cool or lame,
is so weird. I don't know.
This also brings me back to when I was talking about the StarCraft 2 comparisons as a strategy game, where, like strategically speaking, you should fight for center stage, fight from center, corner them, get close to them, pressure them in the corner, and then win. And like not randomly narrowing into the corner, you know, like you kind of have to have a reason to play the mix-up that you're playing, right? And like the reason I'm playing this mix-up is because if I hit it, I kill him, and if I miss it, I will still have center stage. That's like a reason to play a mix-up that's really good. And if you just want to like hit your opponent and like the mix-up doesn't have like strategic backing to it, to me, like that's lame.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I don't really care when people just like press forward and attack over and over and over again. And actually, like it's almost as it's actually probably more frustrating to me than people who camp. It's people who like only attack regardless of positioning, because it's like it's actually not a good place to attack here. You're attacking from a spot where the risk reward is really bad for you, right? But it works because it's unexpected, or because it's melee, and one of the ways you can win in melee is by being fast. You know?
Yeah, true.
And you just like they do options, and then they say they're sick. That's the worst part about them, you know?
Yep, they have to announce it.
Yeah, that's like a narrative that is unimportant to this discussion, but generally speaking, if there's a campy player and the aggressive player, the aggressive ones think they're sick. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though they're equally lame.
Yep. So one of the kind of nice things, I do think that I didn't know if I was going to bring this up or not, but I think there's value in having aesthetically cool things. Because, like, Melee is a sick game. One of the reasons why Melee is a sick game is because, like, combos look awesome. Combo videos are so cool. Right? They really are cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe some people find them more or less cool. But luckily, Melee is a game that almost always rewards cool-looking things. Like, I talk about how Nun is one of my favorite players in the world. Not because he's like he's off the charts, he's so aggressive. He's really not very aggressive. He's a pretty defensive player. But everything he does has intention. Everything he does is creative and covers something. And like it's unexpected in a good way. Like you said, putting yourself in the optimal position to mix up your opponent. He's all about that. But luckily, Melee's really good. Like we were talking about center stage, right? And how being in the corner is bad. If your opponent, like you want to push your opponent to the corner. And when they're in the corner, the risk level is very high. So like attacking your opponent in the corner can be something that's really valuable. So at least aggressively positioning to put yourself close to them to be an unreactable zone so that you could attack is something that's really good. It's like, it's not a game where, okay, hit the opponent to the corner, guess I'll run over to the other side of the stage. Like, the game looks cool and is cool if you're just participating in mix-ups at all. Like, it's just how it goes, you know?
I will say, though, I like to say that, like, Melee, we're kind of lucky that the cool characters are good. Because every time someone releases another mod of Melee, what happens is that there's 3 cool characters, and they've added 35 floaties to PM. You know?
True.
And, look, I don't want to hate on PM. PM's cool. There's, like, good things about PM. But this isn't even a criticism of PM. It's because it's also a criticism of Melee. Where like if if Fox and Falco were like dog shit, you know? they're like Pichu level. Like, the Nair hitbox is inside of him. Shine gets CC'd at 0 forever.
Comes out frame 30.
Yeah, exactly. Everything sucks, you know. And the game is only playable. The meta is only Peach and Puff. That's it. Then I actually just don't think the game is good.
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
It's like the game dies because it doesn't look cool. It's not fun to play. It's not fun to watch. You know? Like it's just, so I do think that like generally speaking, the meta is pretty good for Melee to where you don't have to worry about like you can just play to win and it'll be cool. You know? But definitely, and I think like we've experienced this as well. Like if you're fighting like Luigi or something, like you're kind of like, all right, I'll look cool next set. This set I'm just gonna beat the Luigi. You know?
Sometimes, and again, this kind of started talking about societal pressure, right? Influencing playstyles. Sometimes what I think in my brain, and I think I told you this a long time ago, I play lame, I play lame against almost no characters in the game except for Puff. I'm down. And one of the things is there's no societal pressure to approach Puff. Everybody knows it is a bad idea a lot of the time to approach Puff, right? It's like, no one's going to blame me if I camp this guy, right?
Yeah.
They're Puff. Everyone's going to blame that guy for being the floaty, dumb, slow character.
Same with Ice Climbers. Like, they lost this, like marketplace of coolness, you know? They've already lost that race. You know, we already win that, so we don't need to look cool against Ice Climbers and Puff. Like, they're already going to understand us and get the crowd.
Yep, absolutely. But I hope, and I don't know if this podcast will do any good, but maybe. I hope that we kind of get away from calling characters or players like cool or lame based on completely random things. The game's complicated. It's hard to understand, and like I don't know. Just like saying to your friend that using the C-stick is cheap, like, you are quite literally just preventing people from, being their best selves. Like, legitimately. There are people that literally don't choose in-game options because in the back of their head, they're like, what are people going to think if I, camp this peach or something?
Yep.
So I hope we get away from that, honestly.
Yeah. For me, the lame options are like the ones, like when we're saying like moving towards center stage is objectively good and you should do it. It's like, it's a little bit lame to intentionally put yourself in bad spots repeatedly. And then when you win the game from that because you're really good, that's that's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And as a competitor, I actually don't care at all. Because as a competitor, if someone plays like that, it is my job to exploit it and beat you for it.
Yep.
And I don't even want to talk about, I don't want to tell people that what I'm doing is exploiting the fact that this guy's playing too much in the corner. And like, I want to figure out how to beat him so bad that I can show him, like, no, you actually have to contest me in center stage, because if you allow me to corner pressure you repeatedly, I will be so good at corner pressure that you lose, right?
Yep.
But as a spectator, sometimes it is frustrating to watch certain players who have play styles like this and see them succeed, and then the narrative becomes he's winning because he's playing lame. Right?
Yeah.
He is camping in the corner, and the reason we don't do that is because we have morals. You know, he's doing it because he has no morals and is down to play like this. But actually, it's bad to play like this. It's not just that he's willing to. It's just that he wants to and is good enough at it to beat most players. But it is still not good, and you should beat it. You know.
Yep.
So
the thing is, yeah, it's hard to detach yourself from like the societal expectations or like even talking about it. For me, I'm like a streamer, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of times I'm just voicing whatever dumb thoughts come in my head immediately because I'm trying to be entertaining and just saying whatever the heck.
You're a really boring streamer if you don't say anything, and if you're like going against your inner monologue all the time, you're like, I think this is lame, but I will say that it's fine.
Exactly. So I had this one moment that really sticks out for some reason in my memory where I was fighting against this Marth player and they kept like just dashing back into the corner, power shielding a laser, trying to down throw, down tilt me. That's their game plan, is they're going to dash back into the corner, they're going to try to power shield, and then they're going to try to get the grab, down throw, down tilt me. So I was like, dude, this person is shameless. Oh my goodness. I was like, this is so whack. And then somebody asked me in my chat, they were like, do you honestly think that what this guy's doing is whack? And I was like, if you want me to be completely honest, I'm not being an entertainer, I'm being a competitor. No, I think that this person is playing poorly. I think that they should not be doing what they're doing. I think that I'm voicing my frustrations because I'm playing even worse.
Yeah,
you know
because
what?
I'm losing sometimes.
I'm losing to this bad strategy. That's why I'm mad. All I'm saying, I'm just like voicing some dumb frustration that, you know, you could probably say is ego-driven. Because at the end of the day, like, this playstyle that they're doing is exploitable. And the fact that I'm not exploiting it is the key reason why I'm mentioning that it's lame in the first place.
Because I'm sure you stream a lot of like, beating people like on ranked or something, right?
Sure.
And it's so different when someone does something that's bad, but you force stock them, right? Then your demeanor is like, oh yeah, do you guys see how he's kind of like giving me center stage and I'm just able to punish? And it's like, it's the same thing. It's just because you know exactly how he's doing it and how to beat it. Yeah. That like, there's no like frustration about it because you're just showing that it's bad. Yeah. But when someone is doing the same general idea, but they're so good at the specifics that sometimes they get you, right? Like Marth gets in the corner, but he's so good at that like baby bash back power shield. And the forward arrow he didn't fast fall the first frame. He fast fall 4 frames late, so he clipped me. And it's like, that's what's frustrating. And then it's like it's still bad to corner yourself. But I slightly misunderstood the situation, so I lose to it. Like,
yeah. So one of the interesting things about Melee, I have a couple things to say about this. One of the interesting things about Melee is good options don't always win. Right? Yeah. Like, your opponent could dash back to the corner and just try to shield grab you a billion times. And they might not win just because it's literally a mix-up. It might cover more things, but your opponent might have read you with the exact thing they just happen to need to. And execution is always a factor, right? So, like, maybe you mis-execute. Like, maybe that's why them playing bad will still work out. But, like, you can't say, I did the good option, they did the bad option. I should be winning. Melee does not work that way.
I actually also really like talking about specifically Marth grabbing in the corner because we mentioned before punish game, neutral game, and the first step of neutral game is using the right move. The Marth is doing that actually. Right?
True.
The Marth is actually using a move that if it hits is good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's actually really good for him. In fact, he might just kill you for it, right? So in order to match that, you either have to have a move that is equally threatening as him, right? Or you have to find some way to maneuver neutral. And he's like forcing you to play neutral, basically, right? Because like he's already got that first step of punish game down. That move choice, he already knows what move he wants, right? And so when random Joe Schmo randomly clips Mango with like a soft nair, if that soft nair is actually a Marth doing down throw down tilt, he's actually just randomly spamming moves that will kill you. And that is a really strong way to play neutral.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So...
No, absolutely. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about this. Bad options sometimes working. I got nothing. But anyway.
Got nothing. Yeah. I guess just the final thought I have on this is just discussing good options and bad options, which we already mentioned we don't like doing, but you kind of inherently know it, that an option is bad for a certain reason.
I remember what it was. You're a genius, Squid. Okay, so this concept always brings me back to there was a video of a concert that John Mayer did. It's a really famous concert, whether or not you like John Mayer. He is a talented musician, and he at least knows a lot about music. He literally studied at like a Berkeley or something for years. Anyway, he like goes out. It's there's two different performances that happen within the same like concert. I almost said tournament. So he goes out, and it's like this is a documentary series kind of about the concert, but at the same time it's also just showing you the concert. So first half happens, and he's like going back down to like the chill waiting room, getting ready for the next act. And the interviewer asks him, they were like, John, like amazing stuff, like how do you feel about it? He's like, listen, my biggest problem is that my ear is better than what I'm playing. So he's like, I play a note, and I'm like, that was slightly sharp. Or like, oh, God, like, this is so derivative. I just sound like I'm trying to be B.B. King right now. This is like, this is so whack. But the crowd's loving it, and they're like, oh, my God, this is so good, or whatever. And part of the frustrating thing, sometimes when I'm playing Melee, I feel like I'm John Mayer in that moment, where like I know that this guy's doing something that's bad, but I'm not doing something about it. And like that's how John Mayer felt. He's like, why am I not just like playing cleaner, or like why am I not being more original?
Mayer, you killed it. How do you feel? John Mayer's like, I think we both played bad. That's
it. So true. But yeah, I'm just reminded of like sometimes your understanding of a situation, and what you really have to do is just be honest with yourself. Doesn't matter. What matters is your performance in that moment. That's what's going to define the result of the match.
Yeah, because like seeking perfection is not actually what you're seeking. You're kind of, as a competitor, seeking to win the match.
And then seek perfection later, okay?
Yeah, seek perfection later. Like, seek perfection when someone forces perfection out of you, kind of. Because, like, the opponent that forces perfection out of you, first of all, doesn't exist, right? But that's the player for whom you then have to worry about perfection. Because, like, the whole way up to there, you just kind of are worrying about playing good enough to beat the person in front of you. There's this quote that like winning an election, you just need one vote and everything else is for ego, you know?
Yeah.
So you just need to win by one stock and everything else is for ego, right?
True.
So like feeling like you played perfect is also an ego thing, right? Where it's like I won, but I'm still not happy because that note was a little sharp, you know? And it's like that is a little bit of an ego thing. I mean, and that certain aspects of that is healthy, right? Like you should push yourself, to be sure, but also understanding to try to be as objective as you can with stuff like this, to where like I'm trying to win the match in front of me. I'm striving to play better than ever before, but also I only need to play good enough to beat my opponent, and he's trying to do the same thing, to have like that sort of respect where like we're both just trying to beat each other, right?
So. Yeah. One thing, just to maybe wrap this concept up, is that I found interesting was that AMSA at Summit, like people really liked hearing this quote that I think Toph brought up, or maybe AMSA mentioned himself, but I heard Toph bring it up later, was that whenever AMSA loses a stock, he's always like, I could have done better, because I could have 4-stocked my opponent. And while I think that's a good mentality to have, because I think that's a good thing to strive for, you always want to like, do the best in all the interactions that are coming at you, but there is no like, I play so well that I 4-stock everybody. That just doesn't exist, because like I said, good options don't always win. It's just it's not how it could ever
when
work.
You get down to where like the optimal play is to get to this spot and then randomly pick between A and B.
Yep.
Or A, B, and C. you shouldn't strive to get to this spot and win 100% of the time. That's just, if you're trying to do that, you're not playing unreactable mix-ups, right?
Absolutely.
And you must accept that you will lose some unreactable mix-ups.
Yeah.
And then once you lose them, you're trying to up your defense so good that it's really hard for him to punish you all the way to death. But even within offense and defense, there are unreactable DI mix-ups and unreactable defense and SDI. And sometimes your defense mix-ups will get red and you will die, right?
Yep. Twitch chat thinks they're geniuses when they watch any Falcon set. And I'll use myself as an example because it's a pretty obvious one. So, like, a Falcon down throws me, and I tech to the right. And then, I get stomped for it, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? And Twitch chat's like, why is this guy teching so predictably? Yeah. It's like, what do you think is going on? I'm just mixing up the direction of attacking. He's mixing
choices, bro.
He's mixing up his reads. Like, there's no way I can. If he reads me a high percentage of the time, it's because he got lucky on the reads. Like, I'm not teching in any particular way. I promise you. Like, this person think like, I don't know why Ginger hasn't thought about teching in a different direction every now and then. Like, bro, I need to tech in certain directions that are like quote unquote risky sometimes if I tech towards the edge of the stage because it's a mix-up. That's how it works. The thing is, there's some allure to it all because the reason why, Mango wins is because he's willing to do a bunch of mix-ups, and a lot of times they work. And having mix-ups work a high percentage of the time looks cool and is good. But, you know the other secret part about Mango is that he's very down to lose the mix-ups, which is why he's willing to participate in them in the first place. And that's the part that people don't pay attention to. They're like, wow, Mango's so cool and aggressive, and he's able to win these mix-ups. People don't pay attention to like how down he is to lose the mix-up.
Yeah, and part of that too is his defense. To go back to
absolutely
punish game and defense. My favorite example, actually, I have like a clip saved that I show people this. It's like if you watch Mango versus Falcon, he does approaching laser a lot, and if you copy that, you'll find that you just get nared out of shield into grab into down throw and then you die.
Yep.
But Mango gets nared out of shield and he SDIs the second hit down and away, dash back, dash and shines, and kills the Falcon.
Yep.
So approaching laser is not as risky for Mango as it is for you, because you cannot do the SDI down and away on the second hit consistently, right? And so if you want to copy Mango's approaching laser, you must practice the SDI down and away on the second hit of Nair. Like, those two things are related and the same, because you're not playing the same mix-up as him if Nair to grab is a combo on you, because you die. That is like way worse risk for you than it is for Mango.
And this all goes back to explaining to new students that like punish game isn't what matters. It's the differential between the punish games that matter. So like you can play this way in neutral with the approaching lasers, but you have to have the defense to do it. Otherwise your opponent is gonna have the better punish game. What have we learned from giving lessons? What have we learned either like from our students or just what it's like to be a teacher and how that's affected what we've learned through Melee?
So for me, the biggest thing is that we mentioned kind of at one point that the way you get better at Melee, at least at like high levels especially, but also just all the time, is by studying very specific situations, right? And by giving a ton of lessons, I end up studying a ton of very specific situations. Sometimes they'll have a problem, and the actual best way to play a certain situation might not be the best advice for them, but we're breaking down that situation anyways. And I've ended up breaking down so many more situations than I did even while doing solo analysis back in the day. Because first of all, I think it's a little bit harder to like be super accountable for doing solo analysis every time you should do solo analysis.
True.
So I've just done more analysis than I did solo analysis, if that makes sense, like total analysis done. And it almost doesn't matter who you're studying sometimes, because when you pause at the right frame and you break and you come up with a game plan, then that's just inherently helpful. So now I feel like I have very clear plans macro wise and in a lot of specific situations, right? Like put Falco here, Fox on the side platform, put him on the top platform, put Falco on the side platform. Now switch to percents and do the same thing, and then put Falco in the corner, and then put Fox here. And I've done this with so many more situations than before now, that now when I play the game, I'm like, oh, this is a situation where this is that situation where I talked to this person about it, and I said he should do this. So, so that's been super helpful for me, just to have that many more situations fleshed out just from talking to other people about what they should do there.
One of the fun things along that line is when I'm having lessons with Sammy as the student, which isn't really what we're talking about. We're talking about being the teacher. But Sammy will say like, oh, you should do that, Avery. And I'll be like, Sammy, I tell my students to do that all the time. I know that that's the right thing to do. But it really is helpful to give those lessons and build that in, right? It's like, oh, there's that specific situation. I know the answer because I thought about this with, my student Josh or whatever. Like, oh, yeah, that's so cool when it comes up.
That actually reminds me, sorry to interrupt, but that reminds me of actually a quote from one of your Sammy lessons where you told Sammy that when people ask you, who should I watch for this? And you told Sammy that you tell people not to watch yourself because you're like, I'm not doing it right. Don't watch that. That's ugly. And Sammy responded with like, you should play in a way to where you can tell people, watch me.
Yep.
And you were like, you're right, Sammy. You know? And this was like over a year ago. And I think that you actually have, it sounds like you've kind of like changed that aspect a little bit. And I actually super took that to heart as well, because I did the exact same thing every time. I realized that a big reason for it was that I didn't know what you should do in a lot of very specific situations. And I was like, well, I know I don't know what I should do in that situation. So obviously I should figure it out. Like I'm just accepting that I'm bad versus this. And then just telling people don't watch it, which is inherently saying, I don't want to learn this situation. You know?
Very true.
Now I actually have I have like a ton of clips saved on my computer, categorized by punch game, neutral game, matchup, and stuff like that. And when people ask about something, I almost always have a clip for it. They're like, dude, how do I edge guard Peach? And I was just like, oh, let me Peach, punch game, neutral, edge guard, boom, right side of stadium, boom. And then I show this clip. Whenever I play Melee, I'm trying to stick to these rules that I've described and then play the mix-ups when we get there or whatever. And now I found that I get way more clips that I think are worth showing. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's because you're trying to hold yourself accountable to play in a way that is good. And if I get to a spot and I'm like, well, I would never show how to play against Quarter and Marth with this because I just this is ugly what I'm doing. Oh, I need to get better against Cornered Marth. You know? Because if I'm not willing to show how I play against Cornered Marth, that means I'm not good enough against Cornered Marth. So
no, I think that's great. I don't know. I feel like that's a good place to leave it, to be honest with you. I think this is very fitting for what we're doing here. Do you want to plug where people can find out about your lessons?
Yeah. So I give lessons on Patreon, which is patreon.com. I don't know what it is, actually. Go to my Twitter, SquidsLab.
Nice.
Twitter.com/SquidsLab. And then there in my description, there's a Patreon link, which might just be SquidsLab. I don't know what it is. Yeah, and you can also join my Discord, which is in there as well. So through Patreon and or Discord and or Twitter, you can either contact me or figure out the information if you're interested in coaching.
Perfect. Yes, and it is SquidsLab, and it's getting posted in the chat. Joey Donut's one step ahead of me. I was going to go get the link. And your Discord got posted by Raptor. Perfect. I don't currently give lessons, but I am also on Patreon, patreon.com/SSBMGinger. I'm just SSBMGinger on everything, as most people probably in my channel know. But yeah, this has been Bird Call. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. By the way, we're thinking of doing kind of like 3 segments within Bird Call, which is going to be, you know, the classic me and Squid having a discussion about Melee. There might also be some interview segments where we pull some people on. I think that could be really cool, just learning about people's history and also what they think about the game. And also, bird watching will hopefully be making a return, where the famous series of Squid and I doing some joint analysis together and getting multiple perspectives on some famous sets. So be sure to check out Bird Call. It should be happening more regularly once again, but I appreciate everybody watching, and we'll catch you later, okay? See ya!
Get into it.